That night, I returned to my own loft apartment and found the locks had been changed. My daughter-in-law, always smiling sweetly at family gatherings, stood with her arms crossed, telling me to stay somewhere else for a few weeks for building safety. I'm 58 years old, not some vagrant. I stepped back silently, heard the door click shut from inside my home, and understood she'd just chosen her battlefield. She thinks I'm weak. Good. The weak know how to gather evidence in the dark, and I'm very good at waiting. My name is Margaret Hale Maggie, to anyone who's known me longer than 5 minutes, and I've lived in Unit 4B at the Granite Wharf building in Riverton, Maine, for 12 years. Bought it outright after my husband Jack died, using his life insurance money. Every mortgage payment cleared, every HOA fee paid on time, every maintenance request filed properly. I have the receipts, all of them, filed by month in a banker's box under my desk. The evening it happened, I'd just finished my shift at Riverton Mercy Clinic, where I manage medical records part-time. 3:30 p. Dismissal. Same as always. The October wind cut through my coat as I walked the 6 blocks home, thinking about the leftover soup I'd heat for dinner. Simple plans for a simple Tuesday. The first sign, something was wrong. Oscar, the building's security guard, wouldn't meet my eyes when I entered the lobby. He studied his clipboard like it contained nuclear codes. Evening? Oscar, I said. He mumbled something, gestured vaguely toward the elevators. I should have pressed him then. Should have recognized the awkward shuffle of a man forced to watch something he knew was wrong. The elevator climbed to the 4th floor with its usual grinding complaint. I walked the familiar hallway, beige carpet, burgundy wallpaper, the persistent smell of someone's curry dinner from 3A. My key was already in my hand when I reached my door. It wouldn't fit. I tried again, thinking I'd grabbed the wrong key. But no, there was my worn leather fob, the tiny scratch on the brass from when I'd dropped it on ice last winter. The key was right. The lock was wrong. Mum. I turned to find my son Daniel standing by the stairwell door, his face pale under the fluorescent lights. Behind him, like a shadow gaining substance, stood Sloane. My daughter-in-law wore her realtor uniform navy blazer, pearl earrings, smile sharp enough to close deals. She stepped forward, heels clicking on the worn hallway tile. "Margaret," she said. Not Maggie. Never Maggie. "We need to talk about the living situation." "The living situation," I repeated. "In my apartment." "The HOA has received complaints," Sloane continued, smooth as oil on water. "Safety concerns. Some residents feel uncomfortable." "Which residents?" She waved a manicured hand. "That's confidential, obviously. But the board held an emergency meeting. There's a temporary resolution in place while we sort through the issues." "What issues?" Daniel shifted his weight, work boots scraping the carpet. "My son, 34 years old, 6'2", who repairs commercial ships' engines with his bare hands, couldn't look his mother in the eye." "Mum, maybe it's for the best." "The burning incident," Sloane interrupted. "The confusion with the fire alarm last month. Mrs. Chen mentioned you seemed disoriented in the mailroom." "There was no burning incident. The fire alarm had malfunctioned, building-wide. Everyone knew that. Mrs. Chen and I had laughed about both of us forgetting our mailbox keys on the same day." "You changed my locks," I said. "The building changed them, for everyone's safety, just for a few weeks while we get this sorted out." Sloane pulled a folded paper from her purse. Here's the temporary resolution. You can stay with Daniel and me, of course. We've already made up the guest room. I took the paper, scanned it. Emergency Resolution 2024-10-15. Safety concerns. Temporary custody transfer. Bradley Knox's signature as HOA president, the same Bradley who'd borrowed my ladder last month and still hadn't returned it. This isn't legal, I said. It's completely legal. The HOA bylaws allow for emergency measures when there's a safety risk. Look, Margaret, we're doing this for your own good. At your age, living alone. I'm 58. Exactly. These things can sneak up on anyone. Memory issues, confusion. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Oscar appeared at the end of the hallway, keys jangling. He unlocked my door, and disappeared inside. I heard my possessions being handled, the squeak of my closet door. We've packed some essentials, Sloane said. Oscar will bring them down. This is my home, and it still will be, after we sort everything out. Her smile never wavered. Think of it as a little vacation. The guest room has that nice view of the harbor you always said you liked. Daniel finally spoke. Mum, please, just for a little while. I looked at my son, soft around the middle now, hairline retreating like his courage, and saw Jack's weakness, not his strength. Daniel had inherited his father's gentle nature, but none of his spine. Oscar emerged with 2 suitcases I recognized as mine. He set them down and retreated, still avoiding eye contact. Sloane pulled my door shut, and I heard the new lock engage with a definitive click. Shall we go? Sloane asked, already moving toward the elevator. I bent down and picked up something from the floor, a receipt that had fallen from Oscar's pocket. Maintenance fee payment, dated last week, with my name and unit number, paid in full, as always. I folded it carefully and placed it in my pocket. I'll make my own arrangements, I said. Sloane's smile flickered. Don't be ridiculous. Where would you go? That's my concern. Margaret, Mom, be reasonable, Daniel said. You can't just... I can, and I will. I picked up my suitcases. I'll be in touch about the illegal eviction. It's not an eviction, Sloane said quickly. It's a safety measure, temporary, for everyone's benefit. I walked past them to the elevator, my footsteps steady on the carpet I'd walked for 12 years. Behind me, I heard Daniel whisper urgently to his wife, her sharp response cutting through his words. The elevator doors closed on their argument. As I descended, I mentally catalogued what I'd need my files from the storage unit, the contact information for Jack's old friend at the county clerk's office, the number for that young tech kid in 3A who'd helped me with my computer last month. Sloane thought she'd won with one changed lock and a piece of paper. She thought I'd shuffle quietly into her guest room, grateful for the charity. She thought I was weak. In the lobby, I nodded to Oscar. Thank you for the receipt, I said, patting my pocket. His eyes widened. But I was already pushing through the glass doors into the October evening. The wind had picked up, carrying the salt smell from the harbor. I had work to do. The cracks in Sloane's facade had been showing for 2 years, but I'd chosen to see them as hairline fractures instead of the chasms they really were. It started small. She'd appear at family dinners with property listings fanned across my dining table, explaining how seniors do so much better in managed communities. She'd mention my apartment's value during dessert, casually noting it could fetch $500,000 in this market. Not that you'd ever sell, of course, she'd add. cutting another slice of my homemade apple pie. The Harbour and Stone Realty business cards appeared everywhere, tucked into my mail slot, left on my kitchen counter after she'd stopped by, even pressed into my hand at Jack's memorial service 3 years ago. "Just in case you ever need anything," she'd said then, her grip on my arm a touch too firm, held a beat too long. The real campaign began last spring. Sloane started attending HOA meetings, introducing herself as representing the Hale family interests. I'd never asked her to represent anything. She'd sit in the back row, taking notes on her tablet, occasionally raising concerns about aging infrastructure and resident safety protocols. Always abstract, never specific until she learned to weaponize specificity. The pot incident happened in July. I'd left a pot of soup simmering and gone to check my mail. 5 minutes, maybe 7. The smoke alarm went off not from burning, just steam from a vigorous boil. By the time I returned, Sloane was in my apartment with the building manager, windows thrown open, making a performance of waving away non-existent smoke. "Thank God I have a key," she'd said to Maeve Donnelly, the building manager. Who knows what might have happened? She didn't mention she'd used the emergency key Daniel had given her for actual emergencies. She didn't mention she'd been waiting in the lobby, had followed me to the mailboxes, had counted the minutes before racing upstairs. I know because Caleb Ortiz from 3A told me later. He'd been in the lobby fixing his bike, invisible in his unremarkable 20-something way, and watched the whole orchestration. "Your daughter-in-law's got some serious hustle," he'd said. "Reminded me of my coding boot camp, wait for the error, then swoop in like you're the only patch that works." After the pot incident, Sloane's narrative began to solidify. At the August HOA meeting, which I attended, despite Sloane insisting I shouldn't stress myself, she expressed concerns about cognitive decline in aging residents. She never said my name. She didn't have to. Everyone knew I was the only resident on the 4th floor over 55. Bradley Knox, HOA president and owner of 3 units he rented out at premium rates, nodded along. Bradley had been trying to convert the building to luxury short-term rentals for 2 years, blocked by those of us who actually lived here. One less permanent resident meant one less vote against his plans. The September meeting was worse. Sloane produced a safety assessment she'd commissioned from where? She wouldn't say. It highlighted critical concerns about Unit 4B improper ventilation, dated electrical systems, potential fire hazards. All nonsense. I'd had the unit inspected 6 months earlier for insurance purposes, perfect scores across the board. But Sloane had something I didn't. Bradley's ear and a plan that served both their interests. I learned about the rental scheme from Lucia Park, my late husband's friend who worked at the county clerk's office. She'd called me last week, voice careful. "Maggie, there's something odd. Someone filed a query about temporary power of attorney for your unit. Didn't go through paperwork, was all wrong, but thought you should know." The paperwork was wrong because Sloane had tried to file it herself, claiming I'd signed it. She'd gotten the notary date wrong, filed it for a Sunday when the notary public she'd listed was closed. Amateur mistake for a realtor who should know better. Unless she was in a hurry. Unless she had a deadline. The deadline, I discovered, was a tech executive from Boston looking for a 6-month rental while his Riverton office was being built. Sloane had promised him a luxury Harbour View unit for $8,000 a month, 4 times the going rate. She'd shown him pictures of my apartment, my furniture, my view. Daniel knew none of this, or claimed not to when I confronted him last week. Mum, Sloane's just trying to help. She worries about you. She worries about her commission. That's not fair. She loves you. She loves my square footage. He'd left angry, accusing me of paranoia, of never accepting his wife. That was Thursday. By Tuesday, the locks were changed. The same Tuesday, I found the email Sloane had sent to Bradley Knox, forwarded to me accidentally by Maeve Donnelly, though Maeve never did anything accidentally. The subject line, Re 4B Availability Timeline. The body text, Emergency resolution should pass Tuesday, can have unit show ready by Friday. Tenant willing to pay cash deposit immediately. Just need grandmother relocated first. Working on family support angle. Grandmother. Not Margaret, not Maggie, not even mother-in-law. Grandmother like I was already a memory, a problem solved, a unit number freed up for better use. Sitting in my room at the Harbourside Inn that night, I spread out the evidence I'd been gathering without quite admitting why bank statements showing every payment made on time, the past inspection report, photos of my perfectly maintained apartment, Lucia's notes about the failed filing, Maeve's forwarded email, even Caleb's written account of the pot incident orchestration. Sloane thought she'd been building a case against me. She hadn't realized I'd been documenting her building it. Tomorrow, I would start my real work. Tonight. I sat at the unfamiliar desk in the unfamiliar room, looking out at the harbour lights, and made a list of everyone Sloane had involved in her scheme, everyone who'd stayed silent, everyone who'd benefit from my removal. It was a longer list than I'd expected. But then, $500,000 and $8,000 a month in rental income could buy a lot of collaboration. She'd taken my keys. She'd tried to take my home. She'd attempted to take my dignity. She was about to learn what happened when you tried to take everything from someone who'd already lost what mattered most and had nothing left to lose but the fight itself. Strategic retreat is not defeat. It's reconnaissance with better lighting. I spent Wednesday morning at the Riverton County Administrative Building with Lucia Park. She'd cleared her schedule when I called, voice tight with the particular anger reserved for people who weaponize bureaucracy. Jack would have burned the whole building down, she said, pulling file boxes from deep shelves. You're smarter. You're going to burn just her. Lucia taught me to read chain of title documents, to trace ownership history, to spot fraudulent notarizations. The forged power of attorney Sloane had filed was still in the system, flagged but not purged. We made copies. The notary seal was crooked. The signature, supposedly mine, was traced from my HOA registration form. Same loops, same pressure points, like a child copying homework. She's sloppy when she's greedy, Lucia noted. Good. Sloppy leaves trails. That afternoon, Caleb Ortiz met me at a coffee shop downtown. He'd brought his laptop and a patient teaching manner that reminded me of Jack explaining engine parts thorough. No condescension. Your building has security cameras in the lobby, elevators, and stairwells, he explained, pulling up a website. They're required to keep footage for 30 days. You can request it as a resident form 41B on the management company's website. He helped me file requests for specific dates, the pot incident in July, the September HOA meeting, yesterday's lock change. Every request was date-stamped, creating what Caleb called a chain of accountability. Also, he added, fingers flying across keys. Your daughter-in-law's real estate license is public record. Every transaction, every complaint, every disciplinary action. There were 2 complaints, both for showing properties without proper authorization. Both settled quietly. See this? Caleb highlighted a line of text. Harbour and Stone Realty was fined $8,000 last year for improper escrow handling. That's why she needs the cash deposit from that Boston tech guy she's probably covering shortfalls. Thursday. I met with Patricia Rowe at Archer and Bloom. Patricia was everything Sloane pretended to be: polished, professional, and actually competent. She reviewed my documentation for 40 minutes without speaking, occasionally making notes in margins. The HOA resolution is toilet paper, she finally said. No proper notice, no documented safety violation, no inspection report. The lock change is criminal trespass. The forged POA is fraud. But you don't want to just win. You want to destroy her credibility completely. Yes. Good. Start recording everything. Maine is a one-party consent state. You can record any conversation you're part of. Get her talking. Get them all talking. Friday morning, Maeve Donnelly met me for breakfast at the diner on Water Street. She ordered black coffee and picked at dry toast, guilt making her shoulders bunch. I knew it was wrong, she said. But Sloane said you'd agreed to it, just needed help with the transition. She had that resolution from Bradley, all official looking. When did she approach you? 3 weeks ago. Said you were struggling but too proud to ask for help. Said the family was worried. I pulled out my phone, opened the recording app Patricia had recommended. Would you say that again? Maeve. For the record. She stared at the phone, then nodded. 20 minutes later. I had her full statement, Sloane's timeline, Bradley's involvement, the promise that I'd be better off in assisted living anyway. She gave me a check, Maeve added quietly. $500 for discretionary emergency management. I haven't cashed it. Keep it. We'll need it as evidence. That afternoon, I set up an escrow account at Archer and Bloom and transferred $50,000, enough to show I could fight as long as necessary. Patricia drew up 3 documents, a cease and desist, a formal complaint to the State Real Estate Board, and a lawsuit for fraudulent eviction, elder abuse, defamation, and conspiracy to commit fraud. We won't file yet, she said. First, we build an airtight case. Then we give them one chance to restore your access. When they refuse, and they will refuse, we destroy them publicly. Saturday. I called Daniel. He answered on the 4th ring, voice cautious. Mum, I need you to hear something. I played Maeve's recorded statement. Sloane's voice in the background of the HOA meeting stating she had full family authority. The voicemail where she identified herself as my legal representative to the property management company. Silence. Then, Mum, I'm sure there's an explanation. There is. Your wife is stealing my home to rent it for $8,000 a month. I have the emails. Daniel, I have the forged documents. I have witnesses. You're being paranoid. I'm being burglarized by your wife, with the HOA president's help. He hung up. An hour later, Sloane called from her office number. I let it record. Margaret, you're being ridiculous. This vendetta against me needs to stop. You're embarrassing Daniel. You're embarrassing yourself. And frankly, you're proving that we were right to be concerned about your mental state. My mental state is documented as excellent by my physician as of 2 weeks ago. Would you like to see the cognitive assessment I requested, scored in the 98th percentile? A pause. That's not the point. What is the point? Sloane. The $8,000 monthly rental, the commission. Or just getting rid of the grandmother who won't disappear gracefully. I don't know what you're talking about. Boston tech executive. 6-month lease? Cash deposit? Ring any bells? The silence stretched like taffy. You can't prove anything, she finally said. I already have. She hung up. Sunday evening. I organized everything into color-coded folders, yellow for financial records, blue for HOA documents, green for witness statements, red for Sloane's fraud attempts. Each document was scanned, uploaded to 3 different cloud services, and shared with Patricia's office. The maintenance receipt from that first night, the one that fell from Oscar's pocket, I laminated and placed in the front of the master file. The first piece of evidence that I belonged there, had always belonged there, would always belong there. Tomorrow, the counterattack would begin. Tonight. I sat in my hotel room, looking at the lights of my building in the distance, and counted the windows to 4B, dark, empty, waiting. Sloane thought she'd won by changing the locks. She was about to learn that I'd been picking locks my whole life, just usually metaphorical ones. This time, I wouldn't need to break in. I was going to make her open the door herself and invite me back home. The HOA's monthly meeting was scheduled for 7 p.m. on Tuesday. I arrived at 6:45 with a banker's box and Patricia Rowe. Bradley Knox was already there, arranging chairs in the community room like he owned the place, which, in a way, he did. 3 units converted to premium rentals, a 4th in escrow. He saw me and his face cycled through surprise, annoyance, and finally, a practiced neutrality. Margaret, you're not on the agenda. Article 7, Section 3 of the bylaws, I said, setting the box on the sign-in table. Any resident can call an emergency item with 48 hours' notice. I filed mine on Sunday at 2:15 p. Here's the delivery confirmation. Patricia stepped forward. Ms. Hale has requested review of the October 15th emergency resolution regarding Unit 4B. I'm here as her legal counsel. Legal counsel isn't necessary for HOA meetings. It is when fraud is involved. The word hung in the air like smoke. Bradley's jaw tightened. Other residents began arriving. Mrs. Patterson from 2C, the Nguyens from 3B, Robert Torley from 1A with his service dog. They looked between Bradley and me, sensing blood in the water. Sloane entered at 6:58, Daniel trailing behind her like a reluctant shadow. She'd dressed for war power suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back tight enough to stretch her smile. Margaret, she said warmly, as if we were meeting for lunch. How nice to see you. I said nothing. Let the recording app on my phone capture her performance. Bradley called the meeting to order at 7:05. 23 residents present enough for quorum. He rushed through old business, trying to reach new business where he could table my request. But Mrs. Patterson, 81 years old and sharp as winter air, raised her hand. I'd like to hear about this emergency resolution first. Seems pretty important if someone got locked out of their home. It's a safety matter, Bradley said. Confidential. HOA business isn't confidential to HOA members. Robert Torley said. That's the whole point of these meetings. I stood. I'm requesting full disclosure of the October 15th emergency resolution. I want to see the original complaint, the safety inspection report, and the vote tally. The board voted unanimously. Which board members, when where are the minutes? Bradley shuffled papers. The emergency nature of the situation. Required proper documentation according to state law. Patricia opened her laptop. Maine revised statutes. Title 33, Section 18:16. All HOA emergency actions must be documented within 24 hours, with minutes available to all members. We have minutes, Bradley said quickly. Then produce them. He looked at Sloane. She stood, smoothing her skirt. The safety concerns were brought to the board's attention by multiple residents. We acted quickly to ensure everyone's well-being. Which residents? I asked. That's confidential. I have the right to face my accusers. Which residents? Silence. Lucia had been right. I'd found the timestamp. The resolution had been filed with the county at 4:30 p.m. on October 15th. The locks were changed at 5:45 p.m., but Maeve's signature on the form was dated October 16th. Interesting timeline, I said, pulling out the county filing. The resolution was filed before it was signed, before the board meeting supposedly happened, before any safety inspection could have occurred. Murmurs from the residents. There must be a clerical error. Bradley started. Like the clerical error on this, I held up the forged power of attorney. My supposed signature, granting Sloane control of my unit, filed on a Sunday, notarized by someone who doesn't work Sundays, with my social security number wrong by 2 digits. Sloane's composure cracked slightly. I don't know what you're referring to. You filed it September 22nd. Lucia Park at the county clerk's office can verify. She has the original. Patricia pulled up a projection on her laptop, displaying it on the white wall. The forged document, enlarged, showing the crooked seal, the traced signature, the impossible date. This is a felony, Patricia said conversationally. Forgery, fraud, attempted elder abuse. The state takes this very seriously. Daniel stood up. Mum, can we discuss this privately? No. Your wife made this public when she changed my locks and told everyone I was mentally incompetent. We'll resolve it publicly. I pulled out Maeve's statement, the security footage requests, the emails between Sloane and Bradley about 4B availability. Each document went on the wall via Patricia's projection. The room was dead silent except for the hum of the laptop fan. Here's what actually happened, I said. Sloane found a tenant willing to pay $8,000 a month for my unit. She needed me out. Bradley wanted another vote off the owner-occupant roster so he could convert more units to short-term rentals. They created a false emergency, changed my locks, and tried to make it look legal. That's slander, Sloane started. It's documented fact. I have your email to Bradley. Subject line, 4B availability timeline. You called me grandmother and said I needed to be relocated first. The email went up on the wall. Someone gasped. I also have this. I played the recording of Sloane identifying herself as my legal representative. Her voice filled the room, claiming authority she'd never had. Bradley stood abruptly. This meeting is adjourned. Motion to vote on immediate reversal of the emergency resolution. Mrs. Patterson said loudly. Seconded, called Robert Torley. You can't, Bradley sputtered. Vote to reverse and restore Margaret Hale's immediate access to Unit 4B. Mrs. Patterson continued. All in favour. 19 hands went up. Only Bradley, Sloane, Daniel, and one of Bradley's renters abstained. Motion carries, Mrs. Patterson said with satisfaction. Patricia stood. Ms. Hale expects her locks restored to the original by 9 a.m. tomorrow. If not, we file criminal charges for breaking and entering, fraud, conspiracy, and elder abuse. We also file civil suits against Mrs. Mercer, Mr. Knox, and the HOA itself for damages. This is ridiculous, Sloane started. What's ridiculous? I said, looking directly at her. Is thinking you could steal my home with some paperwork and a smile. You want to play with real estate? Fine. But you forgot I've been keeping records longer than you've been alive. Every receipt, every email, every lie. I picked up my banker's box, now empty of ammunition, all of it spread across the wall for everyone to see. 9 tomorrow, I repeated. My original locks, my original keys, or we let a judge sort it out. The room erupted in angry voices, residents demanding Bradley's resignation, questions about other suspicious votes, concerns about their own unit's security. Sloane grabbed Daniel's arm, hissing something urgent. He looked at me, lost, like a child discovering his parents aren't heroes. I walked out, Patricia beside me, leaving chaos in our wake. Think they'll comply? Patricia asked in the parking lot. Doesn't matter. We've destroyed their credibility. Bradley won't survive the next election. Sloane's real estate career is over once this goes public. And it will go public. And Daniel. I looked back at the community room windows, shadows moving frantically inside. Daniel chose his side. He can live with the consequences. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., I'd stand at my door. They'd restore my locks, or I'd destroy them all. Either way, I was going home. Wednesday morning, 8:45 a.m. The locks hadn't been changed back. I stood at my door with Patricia, Maeve, and Officer Dana Whitlow from the Riverton County Sheriff's Office. Sloane had made her choice. Time to make mine. We proceed as discussed, Patricia said, texting someone. The bait is set. Caleb's ready, I confirmed. The buyer persona is perfect tech money, impatient, willing to pay cash premiums for the right property. Officer Whitlow checked her recorder. I'm here only to observe unless I witness a crime in progress. Understood. Completely. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Sloane needed money. The Harbour and Stone Realty escrow shortage made that clear. We'd give her the opportunity to get it. Illegally. Caleb had created Marcus Chen, a tech executive from Seattle relocating to Riverton, wealthy, demanding, and interested specifically in Granite Wharf units. The previous evening, Marcus had contacted Harbour and Stone through their website, mentioning he'd heard about a possible premium unit becoming available. Sloane had responded within 30 minutes. My phone buzzed. Caleb? She just sent floor plans of 4B, meeting scheduled for noon at her office. Patricia smiled. She's showing your unit to clients while it's under legal dispute. That's fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and conversion of property. We stationed ourselves in the lobby. I had my laptop open, logged into the email account Caleb had created. Every exchange between Marcus and Sloane appeared in real time. 10:12 a.m. Mr. Chen, the unit will be available next week. Current occupant is transitioning to assisted living. Family situation? But we're handling it delicately. 10:30 I can offer $10,000 monthly for immediate occupancy. Can you expedite 10:33 a.m.? Absolutely. For a client like you, we can arrange temporary access even before paperwork clears. Would you be interested in a walkthrough today? I screenshot everything. Patricia forwarded it to the State Real Estate Commission. 10:45 Sloane appeared in the lobby with her master key, the one she'd claimed not to have at the HOA meeting. She was with a young man Caleb had hired from his theatre group, playing Marcus Chen. Asian, expensive suit, impatient expression, perfect casting. "This building has excellent bones," Sloane was saying. "And Unit 4B is the crown jewel. Harbour views, original hardwood, and the owner is very motivated." "I thought you said it was a family situation," fake Marcus said. "It is. My mother-in-law. Early dementia. We're managing her transition." Officer Whitlow's hand moved to her recorder. They went upstairs. I pulled up the building's security feed on my laptop. Caleb had taught me how to access the public-facing camera angles. They entered my unit at 10:52 a. Patricia called Judge Harrison at the county courthouse. "Your Honor, we have an emergency situation. Real-time criminal trespass and fraud in progress." Through the security feed, we watched Sloane give a tour of my home, my furniture, my photographs, my life, packaged for sale. 11:15 a. They returned to the lobby. Fake Marcus was nodding. "Sold." "I want it," he said. "What do you need from me?" "First month, last month, and security deposit. I can have you in by Monday if you can do cash or certified check today." "Cash. But I need something in writing." "Of course." Sloane pulled out a tablet. "I'll draw up a temporary occupancy agreement. Not a standard lease that would require the owner's signature, which we're working on. But this gives you legal right to occupy while we formalize everything." She typed rapidly, fingers flying over the screen. The document appeared in the cloud folder Caleb was monitoring. We watched her create a fraudulent lease for my apartment in real time. "The owner's name?" fake Marcus asked. "The Hale Family Trust," Sloane said smoothly. "I'm the managing trustee." No such trust existed. Noon, Sloane printed the agreement at the lobby's business center. Fake Marcus signed it, handed over an envelope. Sloane counted the cash, $30,000 in marked bills provided by Patricia's firm for exactly this purpose. Every serial number recorded. "Perfect," Sloane said. "Here's your receipt. And between us, the old lady doesn't even remember she owns this place anymore. You won't have any problems." Officer Whitlow stepped forward. Badge out. "Sloane Mercer, you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, criminal trespass, and elder abuse." Sloane's face went white. The envelope fell from her hands, hundreds scattering across the marble floor. "This is entrapment. This is consequence," Officer Whitlow said, producing handcuffs. "You have the right to remain silent." Fake Marcus quietly disappeared. His work was done. "You set me up," Sloane snarled at me. "You set yourself up. I just provided the rope." Daniel burst through the lobby doors, face flushed. He must have been watching from the parking lot. "Mum, stop this. Please. She's my wife. She's a criminal who tried to steal my home. She was trying to help. She was trying to make $96,000 a year off my apartment. That's not help. Daniel, that's theft." Patricia stepped forward with a court order. "Judge Harrison has issued an emergency injunction. Mrs. Mercer is barred from this property, from any contact with Margaret Hale, and from practicing real estate pending investigation. Harbour and Stone Realty's assets are frozen pending audit." Maeve held up a locksmith's kit. "Your new locks. Maggie. 3 sets of keys. Nobody else gets copies." Officer Whitlow led Sloane toward the door. She twisted to look back at Daniel. "Call my lawyer. Get me out." This is all a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding, I said, was thinking I'd disappear quietly. The lobby doors closed behind them. Daniel stood frozen, watching his wife placed in the patrol car. Mom, how could you? How could she? How could you? You stood by while she stole from me. I didn't know. You didn't want to know. There's a difference. He left without another word, following the patrol car in his truck. Patricia gathered the scattered bills, each one evidence. The state will file charges by end of day. With the paper trail we have, she's looking at 5 to 10 years. And Bradley Knox. His resignation letter better be on your door by tomorrow, or we add him as a co-defendant. Maeve changed my locks while residents gathered, whispering, staring, understanding. The story would spread through the building by dinner, through Riverton by week's end. That afternoon, I stood in my apartment, and looked out at the harbour. Everything was exactly as I'd left it, except for the listing photos on Sloane's tablet. My home staged for someone else's life. I deleted them one by one, then made myself a cup of tea in my own kitchen, using my own mug, standing on my own floor. The phone rang. Daniel. I didn't answer. Some bridges, once burned, provide excellent light to see by. And what I saw now was clear I'd won everything that mattered and lost nothing I couldn't live without. The locks were mine. The home was mine. The victory was mine. The rest was just paperwork. Thursday night, 10:45 p. I sat at my kitchen table with Lucia, Caleb, and Patricia, assembling the final pieces for Friday morning's coordinated strike. 3 laptops, 4 phones, and enough documented evidence to bury Sloane Mercer and Bradley Knox under their own ambitions. The state investigator wants everything by 6 Patricia said, uploading files to a secure server. They're opening a formal investigation into Harbour and Stone's entire operation. Lucia had spent the day at the county courthouse, pulling records. Sloane filed 14 false documents in the past year. Not just about you. Maggie. Other properties. Other owners. There's a pattern. The forged signatures all have the same pressure points, Caleb added, overlaying images on his screen. She used the same tracing technique. Amateur hour. My phone buzzed. A text from Maeve. Bradley just delivered his resignation. Also, something else you need to see. She'd attached a photo of a letter slipped under her door, from Sloane's lawyer, threatening defamation suits against anyone who spread false narratives about his client. She's still fighting from jail, Lucia asked. She made bail this afternoon. Patricia checked her phone. Daniel put up their house as collateral. Of course he did. Doesn't matter, I said. Tomorrow ends this. The plan was precise. At 8 3 simultaneous actions would launch first. Patricia would file our civil suit at the courthouse not just against Sloane, but against Harbour and Stone Realty, Bradley Knox, personally, and 3 other employees who'd participated in the fraud. We were seeking $2 million in damages plus punitive awards. Second, Officer Whitlow would execute search warrants at Harbour and Stone's office, based on evidence of widespread fraud we'd uncovered. Sloane wasn't just stealing from me, she'd been skimming escrow accounts, forging documents, and running illegal rentals through at least 6 properties. Third, the expanded HOA meeting would convene at 9 where I'd present everything to all 147 unit owners, not just the usual 20 who attended monthly meetings. The media. Patricia asked. Channel 6 confirmed they'll be there. Caleb said. Anonymous tip about a major real estate fraud story. They love this stuff. Elderly woman defeats corrupt daughter-in-law. HOA conspiracy. Fake documents. Its ratings gold. I studied the timeline we'd constructed. Every Sloan interaction mapped out like a disease spreading through the building's records. August 3rd, first forged document. September 15th, false HOA complaint. October, first attempted illegal showing. October 15th, the lock change. October 23rd, arrest. October 25th, the ending. Maggie, Patricia said carefully. You should know Daniel hired Randall Morse to represent Sloan. He's aggressive. Randall Morse, Maine's most expensive defense attorney. The kind who got guilty people acquitted on technicalities. Good, I said. Let them waste money on lawyers. My doorbell rang at 11:30 p.m. Through the peephole, Daniel, looking haggard. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. Mom, we need to talk. No, we don't. She's my wife, the mother of my future children. She's a felon who tried to steal my home. She made mistakes. She committed crimes, plural, documented crimes. He pulled out his phone, showed me a text. She's pregnant. Mom. 8 weeks. We were going to tell you at Thanksgiving. The oldest manipulation in the playbook. I felt nothing. Congratulations. Your child will have a jailbird for a mother. How can you be so cold? How can you be so blind? She stole from me. Daniel. She told people I had dementia. She tried to rent out my home while I was still living in it. She was trying to secure our future. By stealing mine. He shifted tactics. If you drop the charges, we'll leave. Move to Portland, maybe Boston. You'll never have to see her again. I'll never have to see her again when she's in prison either. Mum, please. I'm begging you. You stood in that hallway and let her lock me out. You watched her lie at the HOA meeting. You chose her over me every single time. Now you want mercy. You're destroying my family? Your wife destroyed your family when she decided to commit fraud. I'm just holding up the mirror. His face crumpled. For a moment, he looked 12 again, crying over a broken bike. But he wasn't 12. He was 34, married to a criminal, about to be a father, and completely unable to accept responsibility. After tomorrow, I said, don't contact me again. Mum. I closed the door. 2A. I couldn't sleep. Walked to my window, looked out at the harbour. The water was black glass, reflecting dock lights like scattered coins. Tomorrow would end everything: my relationship with my son, Sloane's career, Bradley's HOA reign. Victory and loss, twisted together like rope. My phone lit up. Email from Sloane's lawyer, sent to Patricia and copied to me. They were claiming elder abuse by me against Sloane, saying I'd manipulated a vulnerable young mother into a criminal setup, that I'd weaponized the legal system out of jealousy over my son's marriage. Patricia responded within minutes, see you in court? 4A. Another email, this one from an unknown address. The subject line, you don't know everything. Inside, a single attachment security footage from a different angle, one I hadn't seen. It showed Sloane on October 14th, the night before the lock change, entering my apartment with Daniel. They were carrying boxes. They stayed for 3 hours. They'd been stealing my things before they locked me out. I forwarded it to Patricia with one word, add burglary. 6 a.m. Coffee brewing. Documents printed. Outfit pressed. Navy suit. Pearl earrings, Sloane's uniform. Now mine. If she wanted war, she'd get it in familiar clothes. Lucia arrived at 7, followed by Caleb and Patricia. We loaded bankers' boxes into Patricia's car. Evidence for the court, the HOA, the media. 3 years of Sloane's crimes, compressed into paper and pixels. Ready? Patricia asked. I looked back at my building, at Unit 4B's window. My home, my life, my fight. Let's end this. We drove toward the courthouse as the sun rose over Riverton Harbour, painting the water gold. Behind us. I knew. Sloane was probably doing the same, preparing for battle. Maybe still believing she could win. She was about to learn what I'd known all along: when someone takes everything from you, you have nothing left to lose. And someone with nothing to lose is the most dangerous opponent of all. The final piece was in place. The board was set. Time for checkmate. Friday morning, 8 a.m. The Riverton County Courthouse steps were slick with morning dew. Patricia and I climbed them while, across town, Officer Whitlow's team was surrounding Harbour and Stone Realty's office, search warrant in hand. Inside Courtroom 3, Judge Harrison presided over emergency session. Sloane sat at the defendant's table with Randall Morse, wearing a cream suit that couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. Daniel sat behind her in the gallery. He wouldn't look at me. Your Honor, Patricia began, we're requesting an immediate temporary restraining order against Mrs. Mercer, preventing her from accessing the plaintiff's property, conducting any real estate transactions, or disposing of any assets pending full trial. Morse stood. This is harassment of a pregnant woman dealing with family difficulties. This is protection from a documented criminal. Patricia activated the courtroom's display screen. Exhibit 1 security footage from October 14th showing Mrs. Mercer and Mr. Hale removing items from Unit 4B without the owner's permission. The video played. Sloane and Daniel carrying out boxes, bags, even small furniture. Timestamp 11:43 p. Exhibit 2 Mrs. Mercer's forged power of attorney, filed with the county. The document appeared. Lucia's analysis overlaid, showing the traced signature points. Exhibit 3 through 37A pattern of fraudulent filings involving 6 other properties. Judge Harrison's eyebrows rose. 6 others. Your Honor, Patricia continued, Harbour and Stone Realty is currently being searched by state investigators. We believe this is extensive, systematic fraud. My phone vibrated. Caleb, monitoring the HOA meeting. Packed room. Channel 6 is here. Bradley trying to cancel. 8:45 a.m. Judge Harrison reviewed documents while Morse argued technicalities. Sloane whispered urgently to him, gesturing at papers. Her controlled facade was cracking. I've seen enough, Judge Harrison said. Temporary restraining order granted. Mrs. Mercer is barred from the Granite Wharf property and from practicing real estate pending investigation. Assets frozen except for basic living expenses. Bail continued, but with GPS monitoring. Your Honor, Morse began. Additionally, I'm referring this case to the Attorney General's office for RICO investigation. This appears to be organized fraud. RICO, racketeering charges, federal, not state. Sloane went pale. 9A. Exactly. The HOA meeting was starting. Patricia had arranged a live feed on her laptop. The community room was standing room only residents, media, even people from neighbouring buildings who'd heard about the scandal. Mrs. Patterson was running the meeting, Bradley having been voted out the moment he'd arrived. We're here to address systematic corruption in our building's management, she announced. Maggie Hale has evidence to present. The feed switched to Caleb's laptop, mirroring his presentation. Every document appeared on the screen: the forged signatures, the illegal rentals, the escrow theft, the timeline of fraud. Residents gasped as they recognized their own signatures forged on documents they'd never seen. 9:15 a.m. Officer Whitlow called Patricia. Speakerphone, we've seized 12 boxes of documents and 3 computers from Harbour and Stone. Preliminary review shows fraud going back 4 years. At least 40 victims. Sloane grabbed Morse's arm. I need to make a deal. Not here, he hissed. Now. She stood, addressing Judge Harrison directly. I want to make a statement. Morse tried to pull her down. She shook him off. My mother-in-law orchestrated this. She's jealous of my relationship with Daniel. She manipulated everyone, the HOU, the police, even her own son. She's not the victim here. I am. Judge Harrison looked at her steadily. Mrs. Mercer, you're under oath. Are you stating that Margaret Hale forged her own signature on documents giving you power of attorney? She could have. Did Margaret Hale change her own locks and bar herself from her apartment? The HOA. That you manipulated. Mrs. Mercer. I strongly advise you to stop talking. But Sloane couldn't stop. The control she'd held so tightly was unraveling. That apartment is worth $500,000. She's just sitting on it while Daniel and I struggle. You deserve nothing of mine, I said, standing. You're not struggling. You're stealing. And now everyone knows it. 9:30 a. Patricia's phone rang. Channel 6 wanted a statement for the noon news. She handed it to me. Mrs. Hale, this must be vindication after your ordeal? This isn't about vindication. It's about justice. Elder fraud is epidemic. If someone tries to steal from you, fight back. Document everything. Don't let them make you disappear. 9:45 a.m. Back in the courtroom. Morse was arguing for reduced bail. Judge Harrison was having none of it. Mrs. Mercer has shown a pattern of deception and criminal behavior. Bail is revoked. Remand to custody pending trial. The bailiff approached with handcuffs. Sloane looked at Daniel, panicked. Do something. Daniel stood slowly. Mum's right. You did this. All of it. I'm pregnant with your child. And you'll have to explain to that child why Mommy went to prison for stealing from Grandma. He walked out. Sloane screamed his name, then turned on me. You destroyed my family. No, I said quietly. You destroyed mine first. The bailiff led her away. Morse packed his briefcase, already calculating his fee for a case he'd probably lose. 10 a. The courtroom emptied except for Patricia and me. We sat in the sudden quiet, victory settling like dust. The federal charges will take months, she said. Maybe years. You ready for that? I've got nothing but time. My phone buzzed. A text from Maeve with a photo a locksmith installing a new deadbolt on 4B, the highest-rated security model available. My name on the work order, my apartment, my fortress. 10:15 a.m. Walking back through the courthouse lobby. I passed Daniel sitting on a bench, head in his hands. Mum? I stopped, but didn't turn. I'm sorry. For everything. For not believing you. For choosing her. For being weak. I know. Can we try again? Someday? I turned to look at my son. He looked older, defeated, lost. Someday isn't today. I left him there and walked out into the October morning. The harbour air was sharp with salt and possibility. Patricia drove me home, truly home, to Granite Wharf. In the lobby, residents applauded. Mrs. Patterson hugged me. Robert Torley shook my hand. Even Oscar, the security guard who'd been too afraid to help, nodded respectfully. "Never thought I'd see someone fight back like that," he said. "Most people just give up. I'm not most people." The elevator rose to the 4th floor. My key turned smoothly in my new lock. The door opened to my apartment's sunlight streaming through windows. Harbour view unchanged. Everything exactly as it should be. On my kitchen counter sat a vase of flowers from Lucia, a bottle of champagne from Caleb, a stack of mail held by the post office, finally delivered. I stood at my window, watching the harbour, the boats, the life continuing below, behind me, the silence of an apartment that was completely, legally, irrevocably mine. The phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Hale. "This is the Portland Tribune. We're doing a feature on elder fraud. Call my lawyer," I said, and hung up. The battle was won. The war would continue in courtrooms and newspapers, but not here. Here, in Unit 4B, there was only peace. Victory tasted like morning coffee in my own kitchen, sounded like my new locks clicking shut, felt like standing in my own space without apology or explanation. Sloane had tried to steal my home. Instead, she'd taught me how to fight for it. The moment of absolute victory arrived at 10:45 a.m. in the packed community room of Granite Wharf. Every resident, 3 news crews, and a dozen spectators from neighbouring buildings had gathered for what they knew would be the final act. Maeve stood at the podium, holding the ceremonial building keys, not just mine, but the master set that had been in dispute. The actual court clerk stood beside her, ready to read the official orders. "By order of the Riverton County Superior Court," the clerk began, his voice cutting through the murmur. "All property rights for Unit 4B are hereby confirmed solely to Margaret Ellen Hale. The previous emergency HOA resolution is vacated. Any claims by Sloane Mercer are permanently dismissed with prejudice." Maeve walked toward me, the keys catching the light. The room fell silent, except for the whir of news cameras. She placed them in my palm with both hands. A formal restoration witnessed by everyone who mattered. "Your home, Maggie." As it always was. The weight of the keys, 3 new ones, brass and sharp-edged, felt like vindication made solid. I closed my fingers around them, the metal edges pressing into my palm, real and undeniable. "Furthermore," the clerk continued, "Sloane Mercer's real estate license is revoked pending criminal conviction. She is prohibited from entering these premises. Harbour and Stone Realty's business license is suspended. Bradley Knox is permanently banned from serving on any HOA board in the state of Maine." Sloane exploded from her seat in the back row, where she'd been sitting with her GPS ankle monitor blinking red. Morse tried to restrain her, but she pushed past him. "You think you've won?" She faced me across the room, her polished facade completely shattered. "That apartment should have been mine if you hadn't been so stubborn. It would have made real money for the family." "Stop talking," Morse commanded. But Sloane was beyond control. $48,000. That's what I could have made in 6 months. 48,000 that could have gone to your grandchild's future. But you're too selfish to see past your pathetic need to control that worthless. That's enough. Daniel's voice, firm and clear, cut through her tirade. He stood up from where he'd been sitting alone. Sloane, you just confessed. To everyone. On camera. To planning to steal my mother's home for profit. The room erupted. News cameras swung between Sloane's shocked face and Daniel's resolved one. Officer Whitlow stepped forward, hand on her radio, calling for backup. Mrs. Mercer, you've violated your bail conditions by attempting to intimidate a witness. You're under arrest. Again. This time, when the handcuffs clicked closed, Daniel didn't move, didn't protest, just watched as his wife was led away, her cream suit wrinkled, her perfect hair falling loose. Her empire of lies collapsed into rubble. The crowd began dispersing, buzzing with the drama they'd witnessed. Mrs. Patterson patted my shoulder. Robert Torley nodded respectfully. One by one. My neighbours acknowledged what I'd done not just for myself, but for all of them who'd been victims of smaller frauds, quieter thefts. Daniel approached me slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. Mum. I waited. I'm filing for divorce, and I'm signing away any claim to the apartment. It was never mine. Never ours. I see that now. What about the baby? His jaw tightened. There is no baby. There never was. She lied about that too. Thought it would manipulate both of us into backing down. The final manipulation. The cruelest one. I felt something I hadn't expected pity. Not for Sloane, but for Daniel, who'd believed in an illusion so completely that its destruction left him with nothing. Where will you go? I asked. Portland. Fresh start. Maybe someday. He trailed off. Maybe someday you'll answer when I call. Maybe. He nodded, understanding that maybe was more than he'd earned, and left. 11:15 A. I stood alone in my apartment, the new keys heavy in my pocket, through my window. I watched the last police car pull away, Sloane in the back seat heading for county jail to await federal trial.